The thing that's going to make a profitable and scalable car rental business happen has nothing to do with some Turo hack or some automation hack that's gonna 10x your business overnight. As much as I would like to sit here and say that, and trust me, that would make what I do a lot easier, it's just not the reality. The reality is, to grow a car rental business in 2026, you need to have fundamentals in place that most operators that I communicate with or speak to, they do not have. So in this video, I'm gonna take you through those fundamentals and every piece of advice that I know so that by the end of this video, you have all the tools you need to grow a sustainable and profitable car rental business in 2026. For each of these areas, I'm gonna cover what most car rental operators get wrong, an example from a past experience or a potential student, what does getting this right unlock for your business, and how to actually make the changes to get this right. So the first thing I wanna talk about is market fit. How does market fit play into your car rental business? Well, there's a lot of examples of car rental companies, Turo operators, private rental car operators that end up going out of business because they are not meeting the demands for their market. So what does market fit actually mean? It means having the right fleet for your current market for the demand that's within your market. Just because you want a certain car or you think a certain car is gonna do well is not the case at all. Basically, what you need to do is you need to figure out what cars are gonna do well in your market. You need to figure out how to adjust pricing, how to adjust fleets within different zip codes of your market, and how you're funneling your clients. Those are all things that are constantly moving as variables within your business. And you can change one, but if you're not changing the others or you're changing too many things at once, you're never gonna meet the mark. You're never gonna hit the X in the middle, and you're always going to be missing something, and your fleet is not going to be optimized, and you're not going to get the amount of bookings that you want. So what most car rental operators seem to do is they seem to either acquire cars that they can actually get their hands on, so meaning maybe they can finance a certain vehicle or they can buy a certain vehicle cash, and so that's the vehicle they go with because that's what they have access to. That is the number one mistake. Another part of that is going to be buying a vehicle that they want. So when it comes to exotic and luxury rentals, for example, a lot of people will buy cars that they want, not what their market needs. And you may be in a market where a Lamborghini Huracan, for example, is not in demand, at least not in demand enough to justify buying one and actually making money on that car. And another thing is going to be, how are you getting your clientele, right? A lot of operators, I've seen co-hosts and people that manage vehicles on consignment, just like I talk about in my content, where they are running a successful car rental business and then they take on something like a Lamborghini, but they have the wrong funnel. And so there is no clientele for that Lamborghini, even though it is demanded in their market, because they are not advertising it correctly. They're not breaking it apart from their economy rentals, and there are just too many things going on at once. So I have ran into this myself. I obviously had the largest exotic rental fleet in San Diego, and I had moved to Wilmington, North Carolina. Now I was still with my business partner at the time, and I was still part of the business. I was running everything back end remotely, and we figured, why not start up a branch in Wilmington, North Carolina, where I was moving to? And so what we did was we went ahead and shipped over a Corvette C8 over here. And the Corvette C8 actually, right when we got it here, we put it up, we listed it, it started renting right away. Did really well. On my first rental, I actually met an individual who owned another C8, and I ended up signing that over on consignment with the first weekend that I lived here in North Carolina, and I started renting that out, and that started doing well. And so we're like, okay, there's a market here. This was kind of like a lost leader to test. We were able to, have the car shipped over here because we had like 5 Corvette C8s back in San Diego. So it was, no harm, no foul if the car didn't rent. And so we're like, okay, cool. This car's doing well. Let's bump it up a notch. And so what we did was we shipped over our Audi R8 V10, and things got a little diluted at the end, so it wasn't a true market test. But the first couple months when we were really pushing and we were getting our Google business profile up and trying to push for private rentals, we got some rentals on the car, but it did not perform the way it wanted to. And the mistake we almost made was, instead of sending the Audi R8 V10, we almost sent a Lamborghini Huracan here straight away. Now, maybe that car would have done well, I don't know, but a big mistake would have been to take one of the best performing vehicles out of our San Diego market and put it into our Wilmington, North Carolina market. And looking at it from a newcomer's perspective, if you were just getting into exotic rentals and you wanted a Lamborghini Huracan and you think that that's the car for your market, just because you want the car, maybe you went out and you go buy this Lamborghini, or you convince someone to buy this Lamborghini saying everyone needs a Lamborghini in their city for rent and it's gonna do so well. And if we had brought that car over here, or you get someone to buy a car or you buy the car and it doesn't perform well, then then now you have a really big liability that's not producing the income that you want. And sure, over time, you can start to generate clientele, make it known that this business exists in your city, but because your marketing may not be on point quite yet, so it might take a year or two for people to recognize you in your city through Corvette C8s and more affordable rentals and ways to generate other leads that don't seem so daunting, such as spending $1,000 a day on a car. And so you kind of have to ease your way in certain markets. Or if you go into a hot market, Lamborghini Huracan may be oversaturated. If you're in Miami and you're like, I'm gonna buy a Lamborghini Huracan because they're literally everywhere, you go out and you buy one of those, or you convince someone to buy one. Now, if someone already owns one and they don't care, they want a tax write-off, they don't care if the car cash flows, that's a different situation. But if you go and buy a Lamborghini Huracan, or you convince someone on the basis that they're gonna generate X amount of revenue or profit, then you have to look at markets that are oversaturated. So Miami's one of them. You bring a Lamborghini Huracan, typically in cities like San Diego or LA, other places you might be able to rent them for $1,000 a day, an Evo Spider $1,100-1,200 a day. You go to Miami, and I'm just using this as an example, but you go to Miami, it might only be $600 a day that you're getting for the car. And so in the long term, does that actually justify renting the car that way? And this can be the case from every caliber of vehicle. You can apply this not just to Lamborghinis, but you can apply this to, do I buy a 2023 Honda Accord or do I buy a 2015 Honda Accord in your market? And so you really have to figure out what cars are doing well. And to figure that out is you have to do your own market research. So you're gonna wanna gather data from surrounding car rental companies if you're doing private rentals, but regardless if you're doing Turo or not, it can be a very good baseline, especially for economy and low entry luxury vehicles, to see how those vehicles are doing. So you can use tools like rentscout.io, where it's a browser extension on your Chrome browser. You can plug that in, you can go on Turo, and you can analyze literally every vehicle in your market. I actually made a video about this a couple of videos ago, and you can click the vehicle, you can see all of the statistics, all of the data, the utilization rate, the average daily price. Now, there are some factors you have to consider because some hosts have minimum rental requirements, they have higher prices because they don't care to make X amount of money. So you really have to gather a lot of data. So when it comes to exotic vehicles, they typically don't do well on Turo. So how would you do that? You would just start looking up exotic car rental companies in your area, seeing what's out there and seeing what there's a lot of. And now that may be a good or a bad sign. And then you judge that based on the price. There's a lot of Lamborghini Huracans listed in your area, but they're all going for $900 or $1,000 a day, or at least a couple of them. That's a good sign. If there's a lot in your area and they're listed at $500 a day, $600, $700 a day, that's not a good sign. And you can also take a similar approach in a city that has none of these exotic vehicles, right? So you look around, okay, there's none here. Well, you don't dive in head first on one of those cars. You worry about maybe getting a $60,000 Corvette C8, which is pretty affordable for the average person that's getting into this kind of business, and or convincing someone to buy that car because it really isn't as much of a commitment as something like a Lamborghini. And then you would test a loss leader like that, warm up the market, and then also creating the right funnel to bring in the right business for the right vehicles. So there are a lot of different ways to go about different variables. It really is just gonna depend on your situation, on your goals, on your investor network, if you have an investor network, and it's also going to depend on your market. So you really just need to hone in on finding the right fit for your market, not what you want, not what you think is going to do good, but knowing how to do the right research and so you can get the right results. Next is going to be optimization. Maybe now you have the right market fit for the type of vehicles that you're renting out, but you don't know how to optimize your listings. You could have the perfect vehicle. If you don't know how to optimize your listing across different platforms, as well as your website, Google, things like that, then it doesn't really matter if you have the right vehicle. So a lot of operators, they don't have the right optimization strategy, and it can literally be the smallest of tweaks that make the world of a difference. For example, most operators will get a lower entry luxury vehicle or even an economy car, and let's say they put it only on Turo in their market because Turo is great for the market, but they don't have the proper settings, and so they are not getting bookings. I myself, for example, I have a lot of vehicles that outperform the same type of vehicles in the same market. They'll do double or triple the revenue. That is having differences like just having different photos, different trip preferences, delivery locations, things like that in regards to Turo. When it comes to other listings, maybe you don't have your Google business profile set up correctly, you don't have the proper SEO, you're not being found on Google searches, you don't have the proper social media SEO, and really just a lot of operators don't capitalize on the things they should capitalize on. They will create a private car rental company, they won't put it on Google, they create a website and they're like, well, why am I not getting any leads to my private car rental business? That's because no one can find you. You don't have the credibility. You don't have a Google business profile. You don't have reviews, right? And other people, they will create a Turo listing and they start doing all these QR codes for Turo, and they're out there doing paid advertisements for their Turo listings. I'm like, well, why am I not getting any more bookings? Because Turo is spending all the money on marketing, and they're going to prioritize your business based on their algorithm. And it really doesn't matter what you put into investing for advertising for your Turo business. You should let Turo do all the marketing. So if you're doing Turo and private rentals, you should focus on doing just private rentals. I've seen so many operators that do paid advertising for their Turo listings when I'm literally doing the same numbers as they are, and I'm not spending a dime on Turo advertising. But when it comes to listing optimizations themselves, for example, my student Justin, he had his Turo account active for about a week and a half. He didn't get any bookings, and so we went in and we changed a few things. In particular, he had a location set up where he was offering deliveries. He is in the Denver area. He was offering deliveries to a hotel near the airport. He thought that that was airport deliveries. So I went in, I did some deep dive. I was like, okay, you actually don't have it set up for airport delivery, even though on the map it looks like he did. So we went in, we added airport delivery. We also changed his trip preferences, and I'll talk about that more in just a little bit here in regards to why we were able to shorten his lead times. So he had lead times that were like, I don't remember, I think it was like 12 or 24 hours before bookings, right? This is just for Turo, by the way. But you can even put this concept into private rentals. Like if someone calls you and they're like, oh, I need a car in the next 3 or 4 hours, and you're like, oh, I can't do your rental till tomorrow. Those are things that you don't want. And so you need systems in place, which is not part of the optimization that I'm getting into here, but essentially just changing your preferences. So having shorter notices, 1, 2, 3 hour notices. He also had a minimum booking trip. I think it was like 2 days. And then he had a maximum trip of like a week or 2 weeks or something like that. So for Turo specifically, we would go on a Denver search. We would look at his inventory just on the homepage, and his car was like way at the bottom of the algorithm. So what we did was we added the airport deliveries. We shortened the lead times for bookings. We removed minimum booking requirements, and we did not put a max trip duration. So they could book it for 1 day, they could book it for 3 months. It didn't matter, right? Essentially giving Turo what they wanted. We dropped the price just a little bit, not too much. We don't want to race to the bottom. And lo and behold, he got his first booking shortly right after we got off our first phone call with each other. And then I think it was a day or two after, he had called me about a question, and he's like, oh, I have my first booking. It's starting today. You know, I was giving him some tips, and I was like, oh, well, how many other bookings do you have? And he's like, oh, well, since we last spoke, like 2 days ago, I got like 6 more bookings. And so he had a week and a half on Turo, 0 bookings. And then within 2 days, he had 6 bookings on his Turo account, right? And so really optimizing your listing. Now, if Justin had just went on and did it by himself, maybe he would have figured it out over time by consuming YouTube content or whatever. But the moral of the story is that there's a chance that he would have said, these cars are not good for Turo. This business is not feasible. I'm gonna get out of this business. I've seen so many people get into this situation where they have the right mindset, they buy the right vehicles, but they're literally just missing very simple optimization listings. And the same thing comes to your website, right? If you have a website for economy car rentals and someone's giving you a Lamborghini to manage, or let's say you're doing cheap cash cars for gig workers and someone's giving you a Range Rover Sport to manage, or you start acquiring a Mercedes Benz. And if you're marketing those listings together, that you're not gonna be optimized. You have to pick one. You either optimize your listing for cash economy cars or luxury cars. Now you can do both, but you have to advertise them differently, and you have to funnel people in differently, because at the end of the day, if you're optimized for one, you're not going to be optimized for the other. So if you learn how to do your optimization correctly, which can literally be the simplest of tweaks, but you have to know what tweaks they are for your market and for your vehicles, you can go from a business that you think may not survive this year to a business that can 10x this year. Literally, it can be just as simple as fixing your optimization. The next thing I want to talk about is paid promotions. Most car rental operators that I see that are doing paid ads, they're doing Facebook ads, Instagram ads. That can definitely bring you some leads, and some of them are doing Yelp paid ads, and I've done it myself. I've done Yelp paid ads where I spent like $1,000 on Yelp ads in 1 month, and I think I got 1 or 2 phone calls that didn't even convert, right? And so people think that the more you spend, the more you generate, and generally that can be true, but it's not about how much you spend on paid advertising, it's about how much you're actually taking home. It doesn't matter if you're making $1 million. If your business is making $1 million and all you're making is 20,000, right? Who cares at that point that you're making $1 million? So it really comes down to the right paid advertising channels. So most operators will just start dumping money into advertising of what they see. So because they're on Facebook and Instagram, and maybe their algorithm is showing them car rental ads that are structured poorly, they will do the same thing. And just because they think it's working for someone else, even though they have no confirmation of that whatsoever. But if you get paid advertising done correctly, This can unlock huge potential for your business. This can bring you a ton of new leads, qualified leads that may turn into returning clients. Now, one area that you have to be really careful with, this is more pertaining to luxury and exotic car rentals. Although if you're growing more economy cars and you grow a very, very large fleet, this eventually could apply to you, but it's influencers, right? So you have to be really, really careful with influencers. A lot of them, they want free stuff in order for promotion. And a lot of these promotions are just not worth it. You can have a creator, and I've worked with them. I have worked with people like FaZe Rug that have whatever, close to 30 million YouTube subscribers, right? They, you can go on his video and you can see the link to my old company that I've been bought out of, and we got no leads from that, right? What it did was it built credibility. He eventually ended up renting from us as a customer, but it built credibility. We had his face on our Instagram, stuff like that. So in that way, it can be well. But if you're looking just from a pure ROI perspective of the actual collaboration, there was none. We've collaborated with him twice. The first time, I think we got 1 or 2 phone calls. The second time, we didn't really get anything, right? So he might have just had the wrong audience for what we were doing, and that's okay. You just have to recognize that. So there are influencers out there that maybe only have 20, 30, 40,000 followers. They're in your area, maybe they're in the car scene, and you give them a car for free for a day. They might bring you 5 or 10 leads compared to someone that has millions of followers. So you really have to pick when it comes to paid advertising. And this ideology is across all channels, because maybe influencer with 20 million followers wants the car for a week for free, and they're gonna give you X amount of shout outs, right? And you're gonna get X amount of return. Or you can spend a lot less, give one influencer a lower level car for one day, and it's gonna give you 5 to 10 leads. And the same goes for any other forms of advertising. If you're not targeting your Facebook ads correctly, you can spend a ton more money, get a lot less leads. Or if you can curate your paid advertising, you can spend a little money and get a ton of leads, right? Rather than spending a lot and getting no leads. But the best way of paid advertising that I've experienced is Google business advertising. When people are searching, if you search for anything car rental in your area, you're always gonna get sponsored ads. They're always gonna be Hertz and Enterprise. If you're doing luxury and exotic car rentals, it's gonna be one of the biggest exotic car rental companies in your area. They're always on Google ads. And so I highly, highly recommend learning how to do Google advertising if you don't already know how, and really using that for paid promotion. That has been the best of return on investment as far as paid advertising goes for myself. So again, a lot of operators, they blow a bunch of money on paid advertising. They give cars to influencers. They do, X, Y, and Z, and it doesn't work for them because all they're doing is pumping a bunch of money out, expecting a bunch to come back in. And that is not always the case. It is just about picking the right channels and spending the right amount of money on those channels. You don't want to spend $1 million a year on Google business ads if you're only in one city, right? And so those are all things that you have to consider. Don't just dump a bunch of money into paid advertising if it's not the right channel. And then the next thing is going to be organic growth. How much weight do operators put on organic growth, and where are they putting their efforts? Really, really matters a lot. A lot of operators don't put enough time into organic growth. Organic growth nowadays is so easy. When it comes to my own business, having built the largest exotic car rental company in all of San Diego, we generated $150,000 a month. We had many months over $100,000, generating over $1 million a year. And I would say most of our cold/new leads came from Google and optimizing for Google. That didn't cost us any money. I learned how to do the SEO. I built the website. I did all of the SEO for our website, which is search engine optimization. If you're not familiar with that, I highly recommend that you get familiar with it. But I did it all myself. We didn't hire an expert. We didn't do anything. And when you typed in Lamborghini Rental San Diego on the Google Maps with our Google business profile tied in with reviews, we were pretty much always #1. Even if you look nowadays, it's Rent Exotic San Diego is the business name, right? Even though my ex-business partner is still operating it, the work that I've done still stands. And so if you type in Lamborghini Rental San Diego or whatever it is on Google business profile, we are one of the first, if not the first, that comes up. And then when it comes to general organic results after Google business profile, which is all the little profiles you see on the map, we are like #2 or something like that, next to the exotic car rental company in San Diego that's been around for 25 years, right? And so in my own experience, having focused on that was a huge payoff. We would get so many phone calls just from people trying to Google exotic car rental companies in our area. Not enough operators, and you can hire someone to do search engine optimization for your website, and it could be well worth the investment, but it's still a form of organic advertisement, even if you're paying someone to do it for you, because you're not running an actual paid ad campaign, right? You are investing in an organic way of growth, and it is going to be your best friend. Most people in search of rental cars are searching for rental cars. You are not necessarily trying to find them, though maybe you find the right customer, they put you on the radar for a future rental. In the immediate search, when someone needs a car and they need it quick, they're going to go to Google, and they're going to Google rental car near me, economy car rentals, or whatever it may be. So it's going to be your best friend to hop on organic growth. And another way to do organic growth is through social media. Now, my take on social media is very, very valuable, and you can grow both sides of your business on social media. Your B2B side, which would be something like getting investment vehicles, getting consignment vehicles, and you can grow your B2C side, which is finding the right customers. I've done it through TikTok and Instagram just by posting reels and TikToks. I've gotten rentals for my exotic cars here in Wilmington, right? Which I discussed earlier is a really small market. And that is how I found all of the leads for my private rentals, was through literally TikTok, and finding creative ways to do that. You just have to put yourself out there. Don't be scared to get in front of the camera and post content. Can literally pay off 1,000-fold. Now let's take Instagram Reels, for example. And I'm not even talking about Facebook groups and networking groups, which I have retrieved many cars that way. And I've found students that way. It's just a great way to organically network. But I've posted Instagram Reels where I posted literally some Reels, and I got this gentleman that followed me, and he DM'd me and he says, hey, I have 6 Ford F-150s. They were former construction vehicles. You know, I'm canning that business, and I had literally just have these trucks sitting around. They're 4-door. They're perfect for rentals. Is this something you would want to entertain? Are these cars that you would want to manage for me? So I was like, yeah, I'll manage some for you. You know, I set a realistic expectation. I'm like, I've never operated pickup trucks in this area. So how about you send me 2 of them? And if they do well, we take the other 4, right? Now, that came literally from a reel that cost me no money to post. Now, if you were in a big market, like you're in Miami, Florida, or you're in San Diego, or a major city, Atlanta, or something like that, you might have taken all 6 of those. And that came from a free Instagram reel, right? On a peak month, those cars can make you $4,000 to $6,000 a month profit. That is, you know, people spend all month working to make $4,000 to $6,000 a month. And you can make that off of 6 trucks, which if you have the right systems in place, will take you no time at all. But even if you're doing it all yourself, it's a couple hours a week of work. And it's truly amazing just what organic growth can do for you. And so organic growth is my number one advice. I don't say, you know, don't do any paid advertising, that it can't pay off that way. It can, and it can get you shortcuts, but organic growth through social media. Facebook groups is a huge one. Getting into Turo Facebook groups, private car rental groups. You're going to do amazing networking in those groups. I have recruited cars in those groups. People literally will post, I need a co-host for X amount of vehicles. You comment, they DM you. If you have, you know, a proof of concept and a proven business, then I've literally had people ship me cars from other states. From when I was in California, I had a lady from the Bay Area ship me 2 cars. And yeah, it's a great way to recruit consignment vehicles and then customers as well, especially through content. So organic growth is something that a lot of operators just do not take advantage of. A lot of economy car rentals, they're like, well, how am I going to get clients just by posting Instagram Reels? Because you're going to get creative, you're going to get a big following. People are going to want to rent from you. They're going to like your value proposition. And a lot of operators just do not take advantage of organic growth when it can literally 100,000x their business and make so many connections if you portray yourself and your business correctly. The next is going to be retention. A lot of operators do not focus on retention. A big part of my business, months where I was doing $100,000 to $150,000 a month, more than half of that came from returning customers. And so really nurturing those relationships. And how do you do that? Well, you build an email list, you build a text list, you have them follow you on social media, you make them, when there's new inventory, you send emails out, you send text messages, you post it on Instagram. A lot of operators don't do this. They are more focused on getting cold leads, and sure, they get some return customers if their customers had a good experience, but you really want to get customers roped into your business. So if you have a good client, they return the car nice, they took great care of it, they weren't a hassle at all, you can offer them, hey, next time you come around, I'm gonna give you like 20% off. I'll give you a free tank of gas, whatever. Even if you're gonna lose money or break even on that next deal, just make sure they come back. Because I've had customers in my personal experience. I had one gentleman, for example, and this is not made up. Like, I'm not bullshitting you. This is all like stuff that's actually happened. The first car he ever rented from us was the G-Wagon, right? His wife actually called and rented it. They rented it for 2 days. It was a delivery to their home. So we delivered a car to them. They loved it. The car came in great condition. So that's number one, is you wanna make sure cars are in pristine condition. When they get them, all of my clients, when they get their cars from me, they're basically detailed. The floors are vacuumed, the cup holders are wiped out, the screens are wiped, everything is literally almost like it got detailed. Now, they obviously don't get completely detailed, but if I'm cleaning the cars, I clean them very well. If I'm using a mobile detailer, they have a certain standard that they need to uphold, and that's a big factor. So these people get this car, it's a G-Wagon, right? A G550. They're super happy with the service. I forget what it was, I asked them to leave a Google review. They left a Google review. I offered them a discount for their next rental, and it was like 2 months passed by. They ended up renting the McLaren GT. I think it was like a 5-day rental or something like that. They ended up damaging the a bumper, something flew off on the freeway and hit them. They paid that, no problems. They didn't even want to go through insurance. They paid it out of pocket. Great clients. They're like, I'm so sorry for the inconvenience. Can I give you a free day or whatever, just to try to really earn their business. Long story short, that customer ended up renting Lamborghini Urus for a month, Huracan Evo Spider for a month, Aston Martin Vantage for a month, and was just cycling through these cars, taking really, really good care of him. He would bring him back literally detailed, full of gas, barely drove the cars, never price haggled or anything like that. Ended up becoming like literally one of my best customers, if not my best customer ever, right? And it's all about the first impression and creating that retention, right? He's added to my email list, so he gets updates on new inventory. He's obviously a car freak, and with exotic cars, it's a little bit easier. But even if you have regular renters, if you have someone that comes for economy cars, that comes to town and does business, once a month, or it's a local and they need a car once every couple of weeks. And I've had plenty of that too with the economy car side of business that I've done. And if your cars are clean and pristine, that right away is going to be the number one for client retention, because first impressions are everything. When I rent a car from Hertz or Enterprise, it's never freaking clean. Like the outside's either smudged and dirty, there's sticky shit in the cup holder, whatever it may be. And it's just not conducive to want to get return customers. Now, some people choose that because it's their only option, or they think it's their only option, but you need to make a good first impression, and then it's all about follow-up. So even if you have economy car renters that, maybe they rent your Mazda 3 from you every now and again, and now you added a Mazda CX-5, and maybe it's a year newer and it has Apple CarPlay where the previous one didn't, but it's only $5 a day more. You can send out an email blast saying, new Mazda X5 inventory just came in. For all return customers, I will price match your previous vehicle, or something along those lines, right? And a customer might be inclined to just like, well, yeah, I want to rent that car. And then you leave, the other car available for other first-time clients that can then become repeat customers. And so it's really about nurturing those relationships. And a lot of operators don't look at it that way. They're just looking to close leads, get the rentals out, get them back, turn around and get them out on another rental, which is very important. But if they're not making good first impressions by having clean vehicles, giving white glove service, no matter if you're renting a Toyota Prius or a Lamborghini Huracan, always give white glove service. Incentivize them to leave you reviews if they have a good experience, because it's actually going to stick in their mind if they left you a good review. They will come back for that, and then other people will see those reviews. They'll want to come to you. You give them the same service, they're going to be your repeat customers. So it's really just about nurturing your first time customers to become repeat customers, because that can turn out to be the majority of your business. I've actually purchased vehicles because I've had a certain vehicle out on a rental, for example, a Volkswagen Tiguan. It's out on a long-term rental and I'm fully booked constantly, right? So I just went and bought another Volkswagen Tiguan, and that car's always gone too. And that's because I was nurturing my repeat customers. I've also talked to other prospects and students of mine that literally have the same issue. They will rent a car out. The client loves the car. They love the service. They keep the car long-term. They're short on inventory. They buy another one. They find another repeat customer and they keep the cars long-term. And that's how they end up adding to their inventory, right? And so it's about how can you multiply that, but more importantly, how can you get retention of your current clientele so that you do run into those problems, because those are good problems to have. The next issue that a lot of operators run into that prevents them from scaling is operations and logistics. I made a video about this a couple of videos ago, which is essentially how to automate your car rental business, but I'll dive into it a little bit rather than the actual how-to on why it's an issue and where most operators lack. A lot of operators don't have proper back-end systems. So they're writing stuff down on paper. They have random spreadsheets and Google Docs that are just floating around, and they are just inplugging data. In my past, and I'll admit this with my own experience, I'm not afraid to admit my mistakes. That's how I've made multiple six figures of mistakes that have gotten me to where I am today, right? And so in the beginning, we would just keep track of stuff on like spreadsheets. We wouldn't even put them in calendars. There's literally times that I have a renter calling me that they're at my office and I'm like, I don't have the number saved. They call me up and they're like, oh, I'm here to get X and X vehicle. And I'm like, oh, what? Oh, yeah, light bulb goes off. Oh yeah, I had a rental for that car today at this time. The client is there. What do I do now? You're scrambling, right? I've always been able to navigate those situations, but that's stuff that's literally happened to me. And there's plenty of other operators that do the same thing. I've seen it across Turo groups where they forget they had a rental, client shows up at the location, car's not there, right? People literally get banned on Turo for that kind of stuff. And so having your back end systems on lock is like super important. And a lot of hosts, and operators, they don't take that into consideration. And then that leads into bigger issues, such as, are you tracking losses on gas, mileage, especially for private rentals? Do you have the proper security and fraud prevention systems that will allow you to scale, right? I mean, maybe you have 10 cars, let's say they're economy cars, and you're cash flowing really well, and you have $10,000 profit this month, and you're not doing the proper fraud prevention because you're trying to do it manually rather than automating it, which is so easy nowadays. Instead of doing all of that, you are doing it manually, you mess up, A car gets stolen and you take a $15,000 loss. Now you're $5,000 in the negative for the month. All your hard work out the window. You didn't do proper insurance verification, so insurance is not covering it, right? Or there might be some nuances. You didn't have the proper protection set up in the first place, the proper screening systems, and all of that ties into kind of your back end operations within your business. And so having flukes like that, even when it comes to simple things like gas and mileage, can really make you lose your whole bottom line or a lot of it. And that is the reason why some hosts just cannot scale, or they think that this business is not a good business to operate. Other things like having proper trackers in the vehicles, kill switches if necessary. How are you managing trackers? Do you only have OBD trackers that someone can literally just pull out or kick off with their foot by accident if they don't mean to? Things like that can just make you very, very costly mistakes. I've had it where I didn't have a tracker in a vehicle. I had a Subaru Outback, for example. It was parked in our parking garage. Somehow couldn't get into the parking garage via vehicle. Someone snuck into the garage, but you could exit it. They snuck in, we left the key inside unlocked. Simple mistake we could have avoided if we had the proper locking system. But long story short, it was a homeless guy. He gets in the car, he takes the car, but we had a tracker in it. We had the proper tracker in it, not a kill switch or a remote or unlock feature, but it was enough to know where the vehicle was. We had the spare key. We found the vehicle the next morning when we realized it was gone. We picked it up. It was down the street. No big deal. But there are systems in place we could have had to prevent that from happening in the first place. And if we didn't have what we had at the time, that could have also ended in a really bad situation, which happened to me another time. We had an Alfa Romeo. We parked it on the street and we left the key inside. It was actually a consignment vehicle and we were waiting for the owner to come pick it up. He was supposed to pick it up that night. He ended up not coming that night. So he came the next day. The car was gone and someone had stolen the car. We reported it stolen. Police recovered it. They took the tracker out and we didn't have the proper tracker in there. We had just an OBD tracker. They knew what they were doing. They took it out and there was a machete in the back of the car when the police recovered it. There was a little bit of bumper damage. It wasn't a big deal, but we had thought that the owner would come pick it up, right? So just not having, and this is years ago, just not having the right systems in place in the first place can really cost you to not scale your fleet, right? If we didn't have, at the time we were making, a decent enough money, we could have covered that vehicle, but it would have been a big hit for us. And for some operators, that might have put them out of business. And I see so many operators that don't have the proper tracking systems in their vehicles, and they are making simple mistakes like that, and that can derail your whole business. Then there are other things like operations and logistics. Now, let's say maybe you're at 10, 15, 20 cars. I've met many operators. I used to go to this car wash. I was still doing what I'm about to say myself, right? So I wasn't taking my own advice at the time. I eventually switched up my operations, but we were at about 30 cars and I was still washing and cleaning cars and delivering them. I was actually still doing that at 60 cars as well. Big mistake, but I felt like it was necessary at the time. And I'd go to this car wash and there's another Turo host that would come there all the time. And he had like 20 cars and he was doing it all by himself. He had no help. At that time, at least we had some help. And I had my business partner, but he was doing everything by himself. So he was doing booking process, client communication, body shops, maintenance, washing, delivering. He was doing it 24/7 working on his business. And he was capped. He couldn't scale past 20 cars, not because he didn't have the ability to, because he did. He would ask me advice all the time. How much are you paying that guy? What kind of work is he doing for you? Blah, 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 blah. So even if you're good at scaling the business itself, as far as getting cars and getting rentals, you may not be good at your operations and your logistics. And so you're not hiring out the right help. And I really recommend you watch my most recent video on how to automate that business, right? There are many different ways you can do it, but not taking advantage of those things and getting stuck in operations, it's going to do one of two things for you. It is going to limit your ability to focus on the actual growth of the business, because at that point you're an employee of your business. You're not a business owner. Then the second thing it's going to do for you, which is not a good thing, is you're going to start making a lot of mistakes because you're so busy, you're so flustered, you have so much going on. You're going to be missing damages on vehicles. You're going to be missing over mileages. You're going to be missing gas because you don't have oversight of that. Now, eventually you can get to a position where you're hiring that help out. You can oversee that, but even then, eventually you will want to hire oversight for that. And that's going to be things like virtual assistants. And even within that realm, you can hire the wrong virtual assistants. Maybe you think, oh, I found a good one, $500 a month. They're not doing squat for you and they're wasting your money. You're making a ton more mistakes because they're not the correct. So it's about sourcing the correct virtual assistants, sourcing the correct labor. I was talking to another guy that has a very successful exotic car rental company. He has 5 locations. He built a competing app with Turo, and we were having a conversation actually earlier today about how employees have ruined our business. And he had employees that were stealing from him and all kinds of horror stories that we had encountered, bad virtual assistants, things like that, and not honing in on your process of hiring the right people or knowing when to hire people, or, you know, everything together is hindering a lot of hosts from growing and growing correctly, because maybe now they're hiring the cheapest labor they can find or the person that's most available that they can find because they think that's the best solution, and then they end up ruining their business, or they're not hiring people at all. And because maybe they had a bad situation like that. And so learning how to get proper employment. Now, how do you get proper employment? Well, you need to do background checks. You need to do some competency checks. You need to be checking up on their credibility. You need to be checking up on their driving records, because maybe they have a poor driving record and your loss was because they crashed a car. That happened to me, right? If I had checked the MVR, the motor vehicle record for my employee, which I should have done, then I would have never had that situation, which ended up costing me many tens of thousands of dollars. So it's about perfecting your systems for hiring. Another thing you can do is, what I like to implement is hire slow, fire fast. If you start seeing any red flags from virtual assistants or employees, if it's a major red flag, fire them on the spot. If it's multiple mistakes, give them 3 chances, fire them. You don't want to spend too much time getting emotionally attached to your employees. To an extent, you want to be human and compassionate, but there's a difference between being human and compassionate and being a doormat and being taken advantage of. And so what you need to do is you need to put your foot down, and you need to learn proper management skills. You need to learn when to hire people, how to hire people. You need to learn when to fire people. And that's the most important part, when to fire people and when to rehire for those positions. So that's a more, complicated subject, but at the end of the day, there are things you can do in the beginning if you're new to business and you're new to hiring employees that can greatly increase your chance of success. You know what they say, give an inch, then they take a mile. So definitely don't be that guy. You're also gonna wanna hone in on maintenance, making sure you have the proper backend systems for maintenance, making sure you have backend systems for verification checks, right? So how do you do identity and fraud prevention? You can do it, try to do it manually. You can skip trace people. You can pull different softwares to try and pull different identity checks, or you can use screening softwares like insureverify.ai. It's kind of like an all-in-one system. They do a background check, MVR check. They do all kinds of screening. It's an automatic insurance verification as well. If you require personal auto insurance for your vehicles, they will verify it. They will timestamp it. They will send you the report over, right? And those are automated ways which are going to save you a lot of time. It costs a little bit of money, but it's going to save you a lot of time in the end, and it's going to dramatically increase your rate of success as far as having any mishaps happen while your car's out on rentals. So not having the proper screening systems, that will screw your whole business. Not doing the proper insurance verification checks, that will screw your whole business. So using automations to cut down on time and to increase accuracy. If you're running a 10-car fleet by yourself, you haven't hired yet, you're also doing all the verification checks, there's bound to be error somewhere, right? And so using the proper verification systems is very important. You're also going to want the proper documentation for everything. A lot of hosts fail to, and private car rental operators, they don't have the proper documentation before rentals. Well, I know it looked like this, and they're going to keep security deposits. They're going to get chargebacks. They are going to get in a lot of arguments. They're going to get insurance claims denied. So really having all of your operational logistics down. Again, I cover all of this, and I keep mentioning it because I really do cover it in depth in another video, but not having those in place, and a lot of operators don't, is what's keeping them from scaling. And so you need to really figure out your automation and have every step along the way documented. Maintenance. If you're not keeping up on maintenance on vehicles, you're going to have a lot of downtime due to error. You're going to be paying a lot out of pocket due to error. You're going to get warranty claims denied on cars that have warranty because you didn't keep up the proper maintenance. I've almost had that happen to me. I had the engine blow on a Mercedes GLB 250, and I was essentially fighting with the manufacturer warranty because I was doing service outside of the dealer, which is completely fine. But that person I was doing service with had improper documentation. They wanted like the filter part number, like the exact SKUs that they used for the process. I ended up getting all the information. The claim ended up getting covered, the warranty claim for the blown engine. But if you're just doing it yourself, I can do an oil change, and you put an oil filter in and you're not keeping track of what you used, you don't have the receipts in place, things like that, it's going to get sticky very quick if you're dealing with warranty work. And so there's so many things I can get into, and I'm not going to rant on here for 3 more hours. But what I'm getting at is, if you don't have your operations and your logistics in check, and you don't have the solutions for those things, which I've mentioned plenty of solutions, I've mentioned plenty of mistakes, it really comes down to just perfecting that process and not letting that stop you from scaling. Because if you can perfect all of these things that I've covered, you will be able to scale, and you'll be able to scale fast and while making profit, of course. That's everything I have on building and scaling a car rental business. I know I went over so much information here, but if you literally just focus on one thing that I mentioned in this video and you apply it to your own business, I will say that within the next 30 days, you will definitely definitely see improvement, even if it's just on one thing that you pick out of this whole video. And that improvement is gonna allow you to start making improvements across other categories, and it's gonna allow you to scale faster and with more profit. I thank you for watching, and I do hope that you got some value from this video. By the way, if you're interested in working with us to start building your car rental business or scaling your existing car rental business and doing it profitably, I do a limited number of one-on-one strategy calls. In this call, we can map out your best starter vehicles, pricing, renter screening rules, deposit structure, and your first 60-day scale plan. Click the first link in the description to book a call with me, and I'll speak with you very soon. Thanks for watching. Go ahead, head over to my channel, watch the rest of my videos or some of them. There's a lot of value there. I want to thank you again. Please don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment, and we will see you in the next video.